Hi guys, so I am finally here to do my 6-week postpartum update. For those of you who are new to my channel, my name's Kasha. I have type 1 diabetes and my whole channel has been chronicling my first pregnancy as a type 1 diabetic. So if that's something that you're interested in, I've got lots of videos for you. So in this video, I'm going to cover how I'm doing postpartum, physically, emotionally, and then my diabetes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about blood sugars and how things have been different postpartum. So 6 weeks postpartum is significant because that's kind of the amount of time that they give you after giving birth. You set up a OB appointment for 6 weeks later to basically say, yeah, you're all healed, you can go back to normal life. It's that, I guess, 6 weeks is what they consider enough time for your body to heal. So that's why I chose that day. So starting with the physical, first of all, bleeding. That's kind of the most obvious thing that happens to you right after you give birth. So for me, what happened, I had a normal amount of bleeding the first couple days, I would say. Like when I was still in the hospital, it was pretty heavy bleeding. It's kind of like a very heavy period, except the difference between the postpartum bleeding and a regular period is that you pass a lot more clots during postpartum. And when I mean clots, I'm talking like big clots, you know, the size of a golf ball, or maybe even bigger than that. Immediately after you have birth, you pass some pretty gnarly clots. So I had normal bleeding to begin with, and when I went home, I continued to bleed, and it got lighter and lighter, which is how it's supposed to happen. However, by my 6-week postpartum OB appointment, I was still bleeding, and it was I don't know, from what I had read, I think it differs for everybody, but I feel like a lot of women are already done bleeding by the 6-week appointment, and I was still bleeding. And granted, it was a lot lighter, and I was down to a panty liner, so from like the biggest pads imaginable down to a panty liner, which is great. And that, you know, was showing that my body was slowing down with the bleeding. And the doctor didn't seem concerned. She was like, yeah, that's fine. I bet you in the next week it'll clear up. But it was still annoying to me that I was still bleeding. Anyway, after my 6-week postpartum appointment, my bleeding actually increased again. And it went from getting very light in color to almost looking like I had a period. And I'm filming this a couple days after my 6-week mark, and now it's definitely like I'm having a period, which I can't believe that I could have a period so shortly after giving birth, and I'm exclusively breastfeeding. So I'm breastfeeding a ton, and breastfeeding is supposed to be like birth control in a way, or at least for some women it really delays getting your cycle back. So I don't know what's going on. If any of you guys have experienced bleeding past the 6-week mark, let me know. And again, the weird thing about my bleeding is that it did seem to be tapering off and like it was gonna go away, and then it came back like this bright red period like bleeding. So that's how I'm doing with the bleeding, and that has not been fun, and I'm really looking forward to that being done. And wouldn't it be crazy if I got a period already? Like I don't even know if that's possible, but it certainly looks like that. It has some of the symptoms of being like a period. So that's where I'm at with bleeding. The other thing, so my belly, after you give birth, you still look pregnant. Not 9 months pregnant, you look maybe 6 months pregnant, but definitely still pregnant. And so for the first couple of days after giving birth, my belly button was definitely still an outie. I remember one of the questions I asked the nurse after I gave birth was, will my belly button ever go back in? Because it still was like sticking way out there. And she's like, oh yeah, that'll go back. And I didn't quite believe her that it would happen, but she was totally right. It's amazing how quickly your stomach goes back down. So for the first couple days, again, you still have like a definite pooch, and everything is pretty out there, and to somebody who didn't know you, they'd probably think that you were still pregnant. But by the first week, I'd say, like a whole week after giving birth, my stomach was almost back to what it like normally looks like. About my stomach, I'm going to mention weight gain here. So throughout my pregnancy, I gained actually about 35 pounds. It was only 25 for the longest time until the last couple of weeks of pregnancy. I got super bloated with like water retention. And so anyway, by the time it was all said and done, I gained about 35 pounds total in my pregnancy. And when I weighed myself on the day that I turned 6 weeks postpartum, I have 6 pounds more to lose to get to my pre-pregnancy weight. So that means I've lost a total of 29 pounds. in the 6 weeks postpartum. So that's how quickly, I mean, like, I was pretty surprised at how quickly that bounces back to what you were pre-pregnancy. And I guess it matters how much weight you gain during pregnancy, like if the weight is like just you gaining weight because you're overeating versus pregnancy weight. So my weight, I didn't change the way I ate during my pregnancy. Maybe I ate a little bit more, but I wasn't eating unhealthy or binging or anything like that. And so all the weight I gained was pretty much related to my pregnancy. So I am almost back down to my pre-pregnancy weight, which is awesome. And I know breastfeeding helps a lot with that. So hopefully I'll keep shedding those pounds, and pretty soon here I'll be back in my my pre-pregnancy weight. I'm definitely back in my pre-pregnancy clothes, so I don't need to wear maternity clothes anymore. Okay, so that is the story about weight. Really quick note about breastfeeding. So like I said, I'm exclusively breastfeeding, and in the hospital, like as soon as she was born, she was kind of sleepy to begin with, but within the first hour there, she latched on. And I was very happy that she seemed to know what she was doing right off the bat, which is good because I didn't know what I was doing. It was my first time breastfeeding. So yeah, she really took to breastfeeding right away. I would say my milk came in around day 3. I got super engorged when that happened, which I know is normal. Like that first week after you give birth and once your milk comes in, you get super engorged. Like your body makes way more milk than you need. And I remember that first night, like I woke up in the middle of the night and tried to feed her, and she could not even latch because my boobs were so rock hard, like rocks. Like, I mean, like a Roman statue of a goddess, like just stone. That's how engorged I was on that first night when my milk came in, and I had to express some milk to be able to get her to latch. So when you're too hard like that, the baby cannot get a mouthful of breast tissue, and so you need to like soften up somehow so that the baby can get latched on. And so yeah, and probably that lasted, like that super bad engorgement lasted for just that day, because that day, like when we woke up, I told my husband, go out and get me a breast pump, which I did not have. Probably should have had that on hand. I did not have one, but he was able to go out that day and bring me back the an electric breast pump covered by insurance. So it was the insurance pump, and I was able to pump, and then that allowed Sophie, my daughter, to latch and everything. I probably pumped for about 4 days just to keep my myself less engorged, and then after that the engorgement problem went away. So I still do get engorged if she sleeps for a really long stretch, but it's not anything like it was in the beginning. My body is definitely making a lot of milk, like more than what she needs. Although for the most part, I do not pump anymore because I don't want to continue increasing my supply. I want my supply to level out here. So I only pump if like I'm super engorged for some reason and I just need the relief. And usually what happens in the morning, I'm more engorged than at night. Like throughout the day she eats, and by the time I go to bed, everything's nice and soft. So that's how breastfeeding is going in terms of like the physical, like what happens to your body. And I've been so impressed with how like your body just does all that stuff. Like just naturally, the baby knows what to do, my body knows what to do, and she has been gaining like crazy. So it's just like magical to see that your body makes this elixir of life, pretty much. Harry Potter reference for those Harry Potter fans. Anyway, so breastfeeding has been going just fine. Oh, I haven't even had nipple soreness, which is crazy because I know that that's really common. I had like nipple cream on hand. I didn't even have to use it like ever because I never experienced nipple soreness. There were a couple of times when she had a lousy latch and it hurt, and so that was kind of like would make me sore just during that feed. But I did not have any problems with cracked nipples or bleeding or blisters or anything like that. So I'm so grateful that breastfeeding has been going so well. Okay, blood sugars. My blood sugars did exactly what I read beforehand they would do. So at the end of pregnancy, you are taking like 3 or 4 times as much insulin as you normally do, like when you're not pregnant, because you become super insulin resistant, and that happened to me, definitely. I was taking a ton of insulin just to keep my blood sugars normal. After I gave birth, within a day, I'd say my blood sugars dropped. Like I did not need near as much insulin. Pretty much overnight, I'd say it went back to the amount of insulin I was taking before I got pregnant or back in the first trimester of pregnancy. But then when my milk came in on day 3, that's when I started getting lows, like crazy lows. So I think just because the milk production, you're burning so many extra calories and it's almost like you're exercising. So definitely the breastfeeding made me low. And so I decreased my insulin even more and was able to snack on like really fun things that I don't usually get to eat. So that was a lot of fun. And also, oh, I should mention when you, actually, like the day after I gave birth, I was starving, like ravenous, and I ate the biggest breakfast ever. But breastfeeding, in the beginning, like that first week or two, I was so hungry. I was just eating everything. That kind of leveled off here, and I'm not as hungry as I was the first couple weeks. But the first couple weeks of breastfeeding, I was just like raw, eating everything. So anyway, that's what happened with my blood sugars. Currently, at 6 weeks postpartum, I would say I'm probably taking about the same or a little less insulin than I was before I got pregnant, because like that initial, you know, like all those lows I had when my milk came in, that went away a little bit. I don't get as low anymore. I still get a little bit low. It is kind of like my body's exercising, so my blood sugars have been in really good range, but I'm not getting like the lows anymore. So that kind of levels off, like eventually your blood sugars stop getting super low from the breastfeeding. Alright, so finally, emotionally, postpartum, again, I feel so lucky. Like, I don't know if it's because my pregnancy was so stressful because I'm type 1 diabetic and it's high risk, and I was just, like, so grateful to have her born and healthy. I don't know what it was, but I just felt so relieved to have the pregnancy over, to know that everybody was healthy, everything was safe. I never really experienced baby blues. I definitely got emotional, like I felt surges of hormones, and there would be times of the day where I would, like whenever I would think back to the birth or like think about my doctor, I'm so grateful to my doctor, so like I'd have certain thoughts that would make me cry, like get emotional, but I did not feel blue. I did not experience baby blues, really. I guess there was, you know, that first week postpartum, there's just so many emotions going on, that I guess maybe that's what baby blues is, but like I said, none of it really felt sad to me. I never really felt sad, and then after that initial period of like the strong surge of emotions went away, I got back to feeling normal, like in terms of my emotional stability. I felt very normal pretty quickly, and so far I've not experienced any postpartum depression. To the contrary, I feel happier than I've felt in years. I look at my baby. I don't know if it's the breastfeeding, like the release of oxytocin you get from breastfeeding, but I just look at her and I feel like I'm in love. So instead of this period being like very sad for me, or like having postpartum depression or anything like that, I would define it as feeling like I'm falling in love. So that feeling you have, like those intense love emotions you get right at the beginning of a relationship, that's how I've been feeling emotionally, which is great. Now, that's not to say that I haven't struggled with being a new mom, because it's definitely difficult. I was not prepared for, I mean, you can't really be prepared until you do it, for how it would shake up my life. So in the beginning, I was definitely putting too much pressure on myself to get right back into my normal groove, which I couldn't do. Like, I still can't do. The fact that I have makeup on today, I think this is the 3rd time since I gave birth that I've even put makeup on or had my hair like out of a ponytail. So in terms of getting back to normal life, in the beginning, I was feeling bad about that because I was putting too much pressure on myself, but I very quickly said to myself, don't worry about it, just take care of your baby, and the rest of your life will get back to normal once she gets a little bit older. So instead of worrying about the fact that like the rest of my life is kind of, I'm not able to attend to it or do my normal routine or get things done like I used to, I don't care, because I know that when my baby gets just a little bit older, those things will happen naturally. So the key there has been to not put pressure on myself. And I would strongly advise any other new mom out there, just if it doesn't have to happen, if it's not urgent, don't even worry about it. Just worry about your baby, and before you know it, like the newborn period will be over, and they don't require as much constant attention as they do right in this initial period. So that's how I'm doing physically, emotionally, and with my blood sugars. So I'm going to end my 6-week postpartum update with a quick belly shot. Now, the one thing that I'd say is really different about my belly, are the stretch marks. I got quite a few stretch marks during pregnancy, and I've read that that takes up to a year for those to fade, so they're all still pretty obvious, as well as that line that you get down your belly. I have that as well, and that's still there, and I've heard that that can take a year to fade as well. So that's the main difference with how my belly looks, and obviously it's a little bit less tight, like a little jiggly, and I'd like to, you know, eventually get back to my pre-pregnancy body if possible. But I'll show you where I'm at 6 weeks. Like I said, I'm about 6 pounds away from where I was before I got pregnant. Here it is from the side. I tried to wear the same thing I wore in my pregnancy updates, so I'm in the same clothes. And then with the shirt up. Got a little ways to go, but I'm very happy with my post-pregnancy body. So I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!